All right, here we go. It is great to have you here on the NBA Live mock draft show here on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. Um, Day before NBA draft. First of all, I'll point this out. It's a 2-day event for the first time in a long time, or maybe the first time ever. And I don't really understand that at all. I don't get it. I don't get it. They usually breeze through the second round anyway. I mean, it takes no longer than like an hour and 15 minutes to get through the second round anyway. So I don't know why they're making it its own separate day. Um, but tomorrow is the first round. Thursday will be the second round of the NBA draft. Yes, I do think that Bronny James will get drafted. He is not going to get drafted in the first round, meaning which all now that means he's not going tonight in this in this live mock. Just in case you're wondering. So what we're going to do here again, I'm going to go through the full first round, every single pick, 1 through 30, give you my thoughts. And I want to kind of preface it like this, where I think what I'm going to do with this is kind of a mix of what, again, and I think that kind of, as far as every mock draft is concerned, I think they're almost all structured like this, where it's kind of a combination of what I've heard and what I think should happen, what I think will happen. It's kind of a combination of all of those things. So I will also preface it by saying this. I do think that tomorrow night is going to be a crapshoot. I think that the NBA draft this year, there is no clear-cut number one pick. In truth, in all honesty, I think that there are legitimately four guys that could go with the number one pick tomorrow night, right? That includes Alex Sarr. That includes Zachary Rasache. That includes Donovan Clingan. And I think Stephon Castle is going to be included in that conversation as well, with the top pick for the Atlanta Hawks. And again, we always get trades on draft night, so it's all going to be something a little bit different. But as currently constituted right now, and it's happened to me before where you had picks that like I've done these live mock drafts before, and I've had picks traded while I was on the air. So you never know what's going to come about in the next hour or so while we're doing this. So let's get started here. The first pick in the NBA draft. I almost said WNBA. See what Caitlin Clark's doing? She's got me thinking WNBA now. So the first pick in the NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks. Now again, the rumors right now are circulating that he hasn't even worked out for them, but I just think that like he's too good to not take here. He's really one of the only like 2 or 3 guys in this draft that I think have legit like star potential in this. And I'm going to take Alex Sarr here if I'm the Atlanta Hawks. I just think that this guy's too, like unicorny, right? Like this guy is just so legitimately good, right? Such an athletic player. He's one of the best defenders in the draft. He's like a true 7'1", a long wingspan. Like automatically, he's going to translate as a defensive stopper, right? He's so versatile on the defensive end. He can guard out on the perimeter. He's such a great rim protector when it comes to when he gets rolled out into the middle. And I think as an offensive player, he gives you a lot of like wow stuff, right? He's a strong finisher. He's a good playmaker. Like there are a lot of things that you can like about what Alex Sarr does. And again, he's a true center. Like I think Alex Sarr is a center in the NBA. So, but if he can develop his ability to stretch the floor, which I mean, again, if you've ever seen him take a jump shot, like that it's not broken. Like Alex Sarr's jump shot is not a lost cause. So if they can find a way to get him into a position where, that like you can develop his jump shot, you can get him to a point where he's consistently stretching the floor. I think it's a bona fide number one pick. He's my number one overall player. I just think he's like, from an upside standpoint, I think he has the most upside in the entire draft. He's just a very, very solid prospect with so many pluses and very few negatives. Like that's just how I see him. So number one pick for me, I think it should be Alex Sarr. Now, again, a lot of the rumors are, like I said before, Alex Sarr hasn't even worked out for them. I understand all of that. Um, and I've also heard that the Hawks are, like I said before, they're interested in Zachary Rasache, who it looks like is the betting favorite to go number one. Donovan Clingan is also in that conversation. So again, I think again, this is a crapshoot. Like I don't think like there is no Wembanyama. You know what I mean? There is no Cade Cunningham in this draft. Like there's just not. You know what I mean? So you're kind of looking at there's no bona fide number one pick. It could be a bunch of different guys. If I had the pick with the Atlanta Hawks, I would take Alex Sarr. I think it's a home run in that spot. I think his talent is just off the charts here. All right, so the Hawks take Alex Sarr number one. Let's go to number two. Now, this is where I think things can get a little bit interesting because a lot of what the Wizards do, I think, could be dependent on what the Hawks do at number one. And like I said, this is just going to be, I think, a free-for-all here. You know what I mean? Like you're going to see guys that are, that you didn't think were first-round picks that are going to go in the first round just because, we don't really think all that highly. Again, it's kind of determined to be a relatively weak draft, right? Now, there's there's several high upside guys in this draft, and I don't want to say that this is like 2013 Anthony Bennett kind of bad. It's not, right? But there's also there aren't that many, high upside players. There's a few, but there's not a ton. But there's also a lot of really high floor guys. You know what I mean? There's a ton of shooters. There's a ton of wing players that can really make a difference. There's a lot of guys that I think are pretty safe. So it really depends on what these teams want to do. So I'm going to go a little bit, off the chart here. I'm going to give the Wizards Stephon Castle, right? This is one of these picks where, if they really wanted to, and Stephon Castle was considered, again, there was no true number one. So Stephon Castle spent a little bit of time as one of the number one players in the draft, right? He's a bit of a combo guard. I think he most likely plays point guard in the NBA. He's like a true 6'5", 6'6", right? He's a big-time on-ball defender. He's a great on-ball defender. He plays like an absolute dog. He can finish through contact. Great playmaker. He's a bit of a streaky shooter, right? He only shot 26 or 27% from three last year. But again, on that UConn team, you have to keep in mind, Stephon Castle was not their primary source of offense. They had several guys that they could go to, right? Whether it was Cam Spencer or whether it was Donovan Clingan or whoever else, they had so many guys that they could go to in that offense to get points. He only averaged about 11 points a game, but he's one of these kind of do-it-all players. Now, again, I don't view Stephon Castle as a number one pick kind of player, but this kind of falls under the category of, I think that he's going to go, I don't know that he falls past the number 6 pick. He's going to go top 5, top 6. And again, it's just because, like I said, he kind of does a little bit of everything, right? He's a little bit of a master of none. He doesn't have a true specialty, but he does do a little bit of everything. And as far as the Wizards are concerned, how badly does this team actually need a point guard? We're really going to throw, everybody's been crapping on Jordan Poole for however long now. And whether it's warranted or it isn't, I think most people would believe that all right, the Wizards need to kind of get back on track. They have some talent kind of on the wing, but can they find a true lead guard? Great defensive player, great playmaker, has some scoring upside. Really kind of safe pick here. I think he does a lot of stuff right. I think he's got a long career in the NBA. It's a matter of whether or not he hits that star, potentially reaches that next level. That's kind of the ticket there. So, but I'm going to give the Wizards Stephon Castle. I think it's a good pick there for Washington. Let's go to Houston. Houston, I think, here's the thing. Houston has one of my favorite rosters, one of my favorite young rosters in the NBA. They just do. I absolutely love what they have on that roster as far as young talent is concerned. Jalen Green, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, right? Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Alperen Şengün, the list goes on and on and on. And then they supplemented that with a bunch of veterans, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, guys like that. I think that this is a great spot to be in because like you don't really need if you're the Rockets, you don't really need a top player in the draft, but you're going to get one, right? And I think the perfect fit for the Rockets is Reed Shepherd. Like this is just like a match made in heaven. I think Reed Shepherd, here's the thing. Reed Shepherd could very easily be the best player in the draft. Like as far as upside and pure safety is concerned, Reed Shepherd could very easily be the best player in the draft. Like this guy hit 52% of his threes last year at Kentucky. Like that is, it's remarkable. Like he's going to go down as one of the best college shooters ever, right? Like that's just one of the craziest things. And the crazy part about it is that like he's like 6'7", and he plays, or I'm sorry, he's not 6'7". He's more like 6'3". But my apologies for that. I was getting him confused with Connect. But he's more like he's like a spitting image of Klay Thompson. Like he's a hard-nosed defender. Like this guy gets into passing lanes. He really sticks to his guy. Like he's a really solid player. Yeah, as far as just shooting, he's obviously going to catch the ball in space and shoot. I think he could become like a legit shot creator. He's a better athlete than I think people give him credit for. So again, and this is kind of like a system here where like Jalen Green, I think is Jalen Green's a very high upside scorer, right? That guy is going to get buckets in his career, but he's inefficient. Like he's a guy that takes a lot of shots. He's a high volume guy. Reed Shepherd is going to rack up points on an efficient level. Like whether you want to start him, whether you can line him up in so many different ways. I just think that this is such a perfect fit. If the Rockets were to do this, I think that's a home run pick. Reed Shepherd's my number 3 overall player. And again, who knows? I mean, things could change between now and tomorrow. I might bump Reed Shepherd up to number 2, maybe, but he's really that good. I think it's a perfect fit for the Rockets. So the Rockets take Reed Shepherd. Let's go to the San Antonio Spurs here. Now, again, they have quite the plethora of young guys with Wembanyama and Sohan and Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, those guys. And you know, it's kind of unknown to this point whether or not they're going to move anybody, and they could, right? They very easily could. They could try to trade some younger pieces, maybe even this pick. Like you don't really know. They have 2 in the top 10. So they could be trying to move one of these picks or both of them or whatever to try to add a veteran star or something like that to try to get them into the playoffs, get them into that picture. But I think if this guy's available, they're going to jump on it. I think Zachary Rasachet, like this guy could go number 1. Now, again, I want to preface it by saying this. Zachary Rasachet, I'm not low on Zachary Rasachet. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like out on the kid. I'm not. He's my number 6 overall player. He's very, very good. I don't see the superstar upside with him. I don't I think he's a good 3-and-D player. Like if this guy turns around and becomes a player that's of the mold of like a Brandon Ingram or something like that, I think you're really kind of like you're getting more than what you gambled for. Like that's kind of where I see that. I don't really see the overwhelming, like this guy is like the wing version of Wemby. I just don't see it. But it makes a lot of sense for the Spurs because now you've got 2 long, tall French kids that can do a little bit of everything, right? We obviously know what Wemby's capable of. We offensively and defensively, right? We're talking like Wemby's going to go into next year with aspirations of like 30 and 14 and like 4 blocks a game. Like it's going to be some ridiculous number. But Zachary Rasachet, like, could he be 20-8? Yeah, he could be 20-8 under the right coaching in the right system. And I think the Spurs are that system, right? They move the ball a ton. This is a guy that I think that doesn't need to take the lead here. They have a lot of size. They have a lot of things. They like to make weird lineups. They play Sohan at point guard. Like, they have a lot of different lineups that they like to throw at him. And Rasace is an interesting fit, right? Catch and shoot 3-point guy. Like, he's a big time, like, two-way kind of player, right? So look, if they can unlock his shooting, right? Because this is kind of a new thing for him. You know, Zachary Rasace was not always a great shooter, and it's not all that uncommon for guys with that much length to not be as precise of shooters, right? Like, that's why Kevin Durant was such a big deal when he came out, is because, like, Kevin Durant had 9.5 foot long arms and was the best shooter anybody had ever seen. Like, it was remarkable. So I think Zachary Rasace, like, if they can find a way to reel him in and get his shot correct, then I think, realistically, you can get to a point where you can really start believing in a very good two-way kind of player. So I think it's a good fit here for San Antonio. So far, Alex Sarr, Stephon Castle, Reed Shepard, Zachary Rasace in the top four. And I understand, like, it's possible that in my mock right now, seeing Rasace go number 4 might be the furthest you've seen him drop. Like, it's very possible that's true. Listen, everything that I've seen, everything that I've read, it's 1 or 2 for Rasace, and I get it, right? The people see 6'10", can shoot, two-way ability, like they see it and they fall in love with it, and I don't blame them. I don't know. Just for me, I think it's a little overblown. Like I said, he's like Michael Porter Jr. for me. Like, that's the kind of player that he is. I don't know that he's going to be what everybody thinks he could be as far as like a star. I just don't know that he's that kind of player. So again, nothing against the kid, but that's kind of just where I'm at here. So how bad were the Detroit Pistons? And I mean, what is it? 3 years in a row or 4 years in a row, they've had the number 5 pick in the draft. They've had the number 5 pick ever since they took Cade Cunningham, number 1 overall, right? So 3rd year in a row, they have the number 5 pick, but they're getting a good player here. Listen, I think that there's a real good chance that they could be getting, easily, when it's all said and done, easily one of the 2 or 3 best players in the whole draft. I mean, again, he's my number 8 overall player, but I think easily Detroit could be getting somebody that's really good here. I'm going to say, look, give him Matas Buzelis, right? Look, high upside kid, 6'8", right? True 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", forward, does virtually everything, right? Great offensive player. He's got a good jump shot. He's got touch on the inside. He's a good all-around player, right? He's a phenomenal transition player. He really gets out in transition. He can dunk the ball really hard, right? Like, you're kind of looking at a guy that's like, again, in a lot of these like higher upside guys, you kind of need to like look at them and say, okay, you have to kind of get their shooting to be consistent, right? Like, last year in the G League, he only shot like 28% from 3 or something like that. So, like, you kind of have to get him to a point where he's shooting about 33 or 34. But again, you look at a lot of these guys and these young, like Buzelis is 20 years old or nearly 20 years old. Like, he's got so much time to develop into what he is, right? He's just, he's an overall good player. And again, he's another one of these guys where, like, you're looking at him and you're like, okay, he was one of them that was in the conversation at one point to be the number 1 pick here. So, like, I know Pistons fans are kind of pissed because they're like, man, we got screwed out of the number 1 pick again. Well, if there was a year to get screwed out of the number 1 pick, this is the year, because I think the difference between what you could be getting at number 1 and the difference what you could be getting at between number 1 and number 5, it's not all that big. It's just not all that big. I don't see it that way. Buzelis is a long, tall kid that does a lot of things right. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of upside that goes in with him. So I think Detroit gets a good player here. I'm giving him Matas Buzelis. What do we got in the comments section here? Oh boy, it's my It's my arch nemesis, Barry Grant Jr. Well, look who it is, Mr. Draft Guy. You think you're good, and make sure you mock up a good pick at 17 for my Lakers. I honestly, I think no matter who I take, I think he's going to hate it. So I think it's a lose-lose for me. So I'm just going to keep, doing my thing and see see if I can work my way around that. Okay. So that wraps up the top five. Sarr to the Hawks, Castle to the Wizards, Reed Shepard to the Rockets, Risache to the Spurs, and then Matas Buzelis to the Pistons. Let's go to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, they have an interesting pick because, again, this is another one of these teams that's like, okay, they've got a million players at every position, it seems like, right? But look, again, when it comes to this draft specifically, like I have a feeling that there's going to come a point where you're going to start seeing guys that are specializing in an area go earlier, right? Rather than like these high upside, like do a little bit of everything guys. I think this could be kind of where that starts. So this might surprise some people because they might look at this and they might say it's a little early. I don't know that it is. Let's give Charlotte Devin Carter. Now, again, Devin Carter is from everything that I've heard, he's flying up boards, right? And they're saying that because like they really believe that this guy's going to be like a Patrick Beverly-esque defender. Like they really think this guy is just a dog on the defensive side. And they're right. I mean, as far as like him getting in the way of passes and being a pest and being physical and his ability to switch, right? His ability to grab boards, right? Like Devin Carter is like 6'3" or 6'4", and he grabbed nearly 9 rebounds a game at Providence. Like he's just a physical player that can do a lot of stuff like that, right? He shot 37 or 38% from three. He can probably play as somewhat of a lead guard or at least a complement to a lead guard that can move the ball and everything. Like, he's a good player. Like, this is a guy that's, as far as like, if you want two-way ability, Devin Carter is a guy that I think you can kind of bank on. And he's kind of older, right? He's like a 22-year-old kid. He could probably play, somewhat right away. Like, I think you could see Devin Carter play legit minutes for the Hornets next year if he were to get drafted there, right? Great finisher. Like, he does a lot of things right. But again, his specialty really is just being physical, playing hard-nosed defense, stripping guys, blocking guys, right? Grabbing boards. Like, he's just going to be a pest. So if they can get that out of a guy with the number 6 pick, and again, Devin Carter for me is not a top 10 player on my board. He's not. But I think like as far as like hard-nosed defenders go, like Charlotte could just look at him and be like, we need a guy like that on our team. Like we need a guy like that because, they're looking at their guard tandems and they're looking at LaMelo Ball, who's, not a terrific defender. He's big and skillful, but he's not a terrific defender. But again, this is kind of where I think stuff could get interesting. Like I said, crapshoot. I think Devin Carter could go as high as 6. Let's go to the Portland Trailblazers. They've got 2 picks in the lottery. This is one of my favorite players in the whole draft. You're looking at a guy that I think has almost as much upside as anybody. Let's go with Ron Holland to the Portland Trailblazers. Now, again, another one of these guys that was in the conversation at one point for the number 1 overall pick, right? Like if you were to look at the draft almost immediately after last year's draft, Ron Holland was very thick in that conversation, right? Because they look at this guy and he is a high flyer, right? This guy can really get up and really finish at the rim, right? He's got some highlight reel dunks to go off of. Now, again, since then, right, he has a G League season underneath him, and now he's like, okay, he's shooting 27% from 3, so you kind of scare teams away if you're shooting below 30% from three or below 33% or something along those lines, depending on the team. I don't know what their threshold is. But other than that, again, it's another one of these players where you're like, okay, if we can develop the shooting, like this guy's a legit top 5 talent in the entire draft. At least that's how I view him, right? Like a legit forward, some sort of combo wing player who's 6'7", high flyer, high value scorer, can jump in front of passes, right? Can guard multiple positions. Like he's got so many upside, so many like pluses when it comes to this. That is really his big minus is that he's not a refined shooter yet. And if you can refine the shooting, then you're kind of getting another do-it-all kind of player, right? So that's kind of where I see this. Again, Ron Holland, I think, fits that roster perfectly. They're going to have a lot of high flyers on that roster when it comes to Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp. Guys, I mean, like, the amount of athleticism that they could build in that lineup could be pretty insane. All right, comment here, All Even Podcast. What player can slip all the way out of the lottery? So again, I'll kind of go back to this as like I just kind of think that this could be a kind of a crapshoot, right? Like one of the players that I think, and it's actually a good point that he brings up now, because I think the next player that I take in this draft is somebody that could very easily slip out, and it's primarily because of injury, right? So when I look at, yeah, and again, he's a top 5 player as far as talent for me, and the San Antonio Spurs now have the number 8 pick, right? So they've taken Zachary Rasashe in the draft, but they still kind of need that lead guard. This guy reminds me of a lot like Manu Ginobili, so Nikola Topic goes to the Spurs. Now, Topic is a kind of player that, like, as far as like a skill set is concerned, like I came away from watching his tape looking like this guy, like I don't know how this guy ever turns the ball over. Like he's such a good ball handler, he's such a good passer, he's so crafty. Like he's such a great basketball player, right? And I think that's kind of like a trend of what we see now when it comes to like European players, is everything seems to be so crisp, so mechanically sound. Like Nikola Topic is no different. He's no different. Right now, again, I believe in his ability to be a lead guard more than some people. Like I think this guy could legitimately be a starting point guard in the NBA. So I have him listed as a point guard. He is a bit of a combo guard, but like he's so good at the rim. He's so good as a finisher, right? He's such a refined decision maker, and he's not even 19 years old. Like that's the kind of thing. Now, again, he has the knee injury, right? He has the ACL injury, and that's a big deal for a lot of teams, and I understand all of that, right? But here's the thing. Topic is not one of those players, like he's not Russell Westbrook. Like he's not one of these guys that like where his knees, his athleticism, his ability to get up and finish above the rim, like that's not Topic's game. You know, his game is almost being grounded, right? Now, obviously you need, like, if he's got healthy knees, it's better than if he has unhealthy knees. I understand all that. But it's like, I don't even know that if I were a GM, I don't know that the ACL scares me at all. I just don't. Like, this is a kind of player, and especially in a draft like this, where there aren't very many like big swings. Like, I wouldn't mind taking one on this kid. Watch the kid's tape. It's remarkable, some of the stuff he does. Topic right now, like I have Topic as my number five player in the entire draft. Like I said, he reminds me a lot of Manu Ginobili. Like that's the kind of player that I think you'd be getting with him. So pair him up, like the draft that I have the Spurs having right now with Zachary Rasashe and Nikola Topic. Those are my number 5 and my number 6 players. Like that's a hell of a haul. It really is. That's a crazy, crazy haul. And again, you're dipping in 2 different specialty areas. Rasashe is more of a two-way scorer, kind of player, shooter. If you can unlock that, he could be really, really good. Topic is the guy that can facilitate the whole thing. And again, he's like 6'6" or 6'7". So he's not like a small guard. He's got great size. So to answer your question, Barry Grant Jr., because I know you asked the question of who do I think could fall out of the lottery. I think Topic could because of the injury, but I just think as far as like upside, I think he's a top 5 pick. If I were the Wizards, at number 2, I would take Topic number 2. I think that highly of him as a legitimate player. So Spurs take Topic at number 8. All right, number 9. They need to kind of stick to their identity, no? So why not get them? And I understand they have Jaren Jackson playing center. I would not be opposed to having Jaren Jackson, as good of a defender as he is, being able to switch a little bit more on the perimeter, right? Giving him more of a power forward type of role where he can stretch the floor a little bit more. He's not locked into the paint. How about we give the Memphis Grizzlies Donovan Clingan? That to me makes an unbelievable amount of sense, right? If you want to talk about just interior presence, I don't know that you could have watched a UConn game and immediately as you turned on the television, you didn't notice that Donovan Clingan was on the floor. He's legit 7'2" or 7'3". He's a massive guy. Unbelievable shot blocker. Averaged 2.5 blocks a game last year. He's an incredible interior scorer, right? Everything that's inside, he dunks. Terrific rebounder, right? Just as far as interior presence is concerned, you can make the case that Donovan Clingan was the most dominant defensive center in college basketball last year. You very easily could have made that case. Now, I know that Zach Edey is, as far as on the offensive end, Zach Edey is very clearly that guy. And Zach Edey, I think, is one of the most decorated college basketball players I've ever evaluated. It's just insane what he has done in his college career. But Donovan Clingan is, as far as presence, he's going to walk into the NBA day one. I mean, he's 7'1", 282. He's immediately going to walk in to the NBA and be a legitimate force on the inside. So, again, it kind of fits true to their identity. Toughness, physicality, hard-nosed defense. That's what I think Clingan is. And again, anything that's around the rim, Clingan is an easy finisher, 60+%. It's almost automatic. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And I understand that the Grizzlies could go in a lot of different directions. They had a disappointing year this year. Again, and Clingan is in the conversation, a number 1 pick. He might not be here by then. If you have the opportunity to make this pairing and then have Jackson and Clingan in your front court, I don't know that you pass that up. You're automatically becoming one of the best interior defensive teams in the league. That's just ridiculous. So I'll go Donovan Clingan to the Grizzlies. The Utah Jazz are going to take my number 2 overall player in the draft, and it just so happens to be a point guard. It's going to be Rob Dillingham. Now, Rob Dillingham, for me, is one of those players that, if there's going to be another Damian Lillard, Darius Garland kind of player in this draft, it's going to be Rob Dillingham. Now, I understand why people are a little bit skeptical on his true upside and NBA translatability. I understand all that, right? He's not a great defender. He's pretty undersized. He's only 6'1". He's got a thin frame, all of that stuff. I get that. He's not a terrific passer. He's developing as a passer, but he's not a great passer yet. But boy, can this guy create a shot. That's the thing. It's it's not common. People kind of need to understand this. It's not all that common to see players coming out of college that can legitimately naturally create their own shot, right? So many guys, like they might have the upside to be able to do it, but Rob Dillingham is one of those players that can already do it. He can go into the NBA tomorrow as an undersized guard, and he can go into the NBA and create his own shots and get his own buckets. Offense doesn't need to be created for him. And that's a legitimate thing that people need to recognize, is that there's so much value in a player that can create his own offense, right? Those are the players that turn into your stars, right? Like, as far as upside is concerned, I think Rob Dillingham has some of the best in the draft. This guy can move with the basketball in his hands. Tight handle, great finesse moves. He can knock down shots. He hit almost 45% of his threes, so you know that he can be a proven shooter. Like, he can get streaky, but you know that it's there. Like, Rob Dillingham, I think, is going to have, like, next year, if he gets the minutes, like, Rob Dillingham could score and could have 30 plus, 35 plus point nights. Like, that's the kind of electric scoring that you could get out of somebody like Rob Dillingham. So, again, that's who I would give the Jazz. I still think, like I said, they need a guard, and I thought they needed a guard last year, and they didn't address it. So I think Rob Dillingham in Utah, I think, would make a ton of sense, despite the fact that they have maybe the worst uniforms in sports. Like, the new Utah Jazz uniforms, where it's just like black and yellow, and it's like block lettering. Like, it is the worst, ugliest. Blech, it's the ugliest thing ever. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Okay, so let's go to the Chicago Bulls. Chicago at 11. They're kind of tough to figure out, simply because, like, you don't really know what their plan is, right? I think everybody is kind of thinking, okay, they're going to give this another go, right? But DeRozan's an unrestricted free agent. You don't really, know what's going to go on with DeRozan. Are they going to bring him back? Does he want to go back? Are they going to trade Zach LaVine? Like, they just traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. Like, it really kind of depends on what they want to do. So I'm going to kind of take a high flying, high upside pick here for Chicago, and I'm going to take Cody Williams. Like, this is one of these players where, like, he's not ready, right? Cody Williams was not like a heavy minute logger at Colorado. Now, he played, but he was not at the forefront of their success. He wasn't. He averaged like 12 points a game. He was a good player, but he's 19 and a half, right? He's a little bit of like all right, what is he good at? What is he not good at? Right? So he is kind of like, in a lot of ways, he's similar to his brother. His brother is Jalen Williams for the Thunder, who has become quite the player. But there's a lot of unknown with him, right? So he's 6'7" or 6'8". He's got a thin frame. He shot well from three this year, but how real is that, right? But there are a lot of people that see him as kind of like a point forward kind of player, and that's not dumb. Like, he can definitely do a lot of those things. He's a very versatile player. So, again, for a guy with a lot of upside, where you can almost kind of mold him into what you need, I feel like that's kind of what Chicago should do, right? You're kind of in a position where, all right, we don't know if Lonzo is ever going to come back. We don't know if we're trading LaVine. We don't know if DeRozan wants to stay. Like, what are we going to do? You can kind of mold Cody Williams in a way into the player that you want to fill the gap with. So Cody Williams to the Chicago Bulls. Let's go back to the comments here. Do you think that with the new CBA and apron system, that players who are a little older in college and ready to contribute right away will be trending as time goes on? I think those players are key. So I'll be completely honest with you. I have not looked into the new CBA that deeply. I have not looked into the apron system. I'm sure that it's something that I should, but I really don't have much to add with that. You know what I mean? Like, I think, as far as like like older players getting drafted. Like I think I don't know that I would argue that it's not good to stay longer in college, right? Like I'll even throw this out. Like Bronny James is a guy that I think should have stayed in college. Like he should have. Like there are a lot of ways, and unless you're like a bona fide top pick, like I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of guys to go back. You know what I mean? Like just develop your game a little more because then you just like you're giving more teams a reason to draft you, right? You're developing more skills. If you can just show that you have more talent than what you've previously let on, like that's a lot of these like a lot of the times when you scout a player, like, like I'll give an example, right? So last year when Bobby Clintman was at Wake Forest, right? There were skills that he had this year in the NBL that he didn't have at Wake Forest. He's a better prospect this year than he was last year. Like you just develop a little bit more. So that's kind of the argument that I'll make. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but that's pretty much what I'll add to that. Oklahoma City, number 12. My buddy Bryson Carver, our buddy Bryson Carver is going to like this. How about we give the Oklahoma City Thunder Dalton Knecht? Now, this guy, I think, could go off the board fairly quickly. I don't think he is like super upside, like everybody needs to get their hands on him. No. Do I think he's a superstar in the making? No. But boy, can this kid score. Like Dalton Knecht is going to score. He's scored in college and he's going to score in the NBA. Like, I think that's pretty fair to assume. Okay. He can knock down threes. The guy's got ice in his veins, right? Such a great shooter, especially off the dribble. Like, he was given so much responsibility at Tennessee this past year. And boy, did he run with it, man. I mean, he was efficient. He was a solid player, right? Like, can finish at the rim, can shoot from all over. Like, he's just a really solid player. Here's the issue that Knecht has. This dude is going to get exposed defensively in the NBA. He is not a great athlete. He is not laterally quick. I mean, he was targeted in college. He is really going to get targeted in the NBA. Now, he's a hardworking kid. That doesn't mean that he can't become a better defender because he very easily could be. But early in his career, he could very easily be a liability on defense. So you need to be in a position, if you're an NBA team, you need to be in a position where the offensive output, the offensive positives that you're going to get from Dalton Knecht outweigh the defensive negatives. You can't throw him in a lineup and give him the ball a couple of times while he's on the floor. You can't do that. If he's on the floor, he needs to be scoring for you. You need to have plays designed for him because then it'll make the defensive woes worth it. You know what I mean? It'll give and take. That's the only way I think that you're going to get any real positive plus minus out of him. Like, that's really how I feel about this. So, and again, in a system like Oklahoma City, like, they'll find a way to make that work. You know what I mean? Like, they could use some scorers anyway. Let's just make it so that Dalton Knecht gets the ball a bunch if in that offense. I don't know that that's going to be a real big problem because outside, like SGA is going to get the ball a ton. That's not a secret. But as good as somebody like Chet Holmgren is, like Chet Holmgren doesn't need the ball all the time to be successful. He doesn't, right? He can set screens. He plays defense, all of that stuff. You know, as everybody else, they're kind of rollies. Dort, Williams, again, they don't need the ball to be effective. Dalton Knecht is different. As good of an offensive player as he is, he's better with the ball in his hands. And you can do that. He'll make it worth it for you. But you need to make it worth it by giving him the ball and avoiding just keeping him out there so that he can get torched defensively. So that's where I would go. Oklahoma City gets Dalton Knecht. Let's go to the Sacramento Kings. Only 2 picks remaining in the lottery. I've seen this guy go as late as the latter half of the first round or the end of the first round. I don't really understand it. I just think as far as like a polished player, like I think he's there, mid first round at the very least. Like that's how like I feel about him as an overall player. Let's give the Sacramento Kings Kyle Filipowski. So here's the thing. As far as upside is concerned, no, he's not a star. Is he a center? Yeah. I mean, he could probably play center. Is he a power forward? Yeah, I think he could probably play that too. I think he's a versatile big. And he can do a lot of things. He can stretch the floor. He's a very smooth operator. Like this guy can really do a lot of things, right? He's kind of the guy that I think can put everything together in an offense, right? He is a lot like Domantas Sabonis in that respect. So why not pair the two, right? This is a team that has Keegan Murray, who they love. This is a team that has Sabonis, who they love. I think they could use some depth at this spot. I don't think you're really finding a starter at this point. They've got some really like dynamic guards over there with Fox. And if they bring Monk back, I'm not sure if they're going to bring Monk back, but they've got some dynamic guards over there. I would really love to see them add a little bit more size, give them a little bit more versatility so that maybe they could even play bigger lineups with Murray, Filipowski, and Sabonis and kind of lock that all down. So I would actually really like to see that. So Kyle Filipowski, I'm going to bring him in for Sacramento. All right, Portland. Let's go high upside. What do you say about that? Again, I'm going to go another foreign kid. He could very easily go earlier than this. I mean, there are a lot of guys that see him as like a legit top 5, top 10 prospect, maybe even earlier. But let's go to the Portland Trailblazers and let's give them Tidjane Salaün. So here's the thing with him, right? Super young kid. He's not even 19, right? Like he's a super raw player. I don't know. Again, I'm not locked in like that. I don't know if he's coming over right away. I would assume that there's a chance that he is, right? I think he's going to be in the green room. Like there's a chance that he does come over right away. But just as far as like two-way ability, true 6'9", wingspan, defender, all of that stuff. He's got all that, right? Athletic finisher, right? Big time defender on both the perimeter and on the inside. Like he can do both, right? This is a player that you're going to have to develop. This is not like a plug and play guy. Who was it? Fran Fraschilla, who was saying it on ESPN a while ago, where he was saying he's 2 years away from being 2 years away. It's very possible that Tidjane Salaün is that kind of player. Like you might have to wait not just one, but maybe a couple of years until he's like fully ready to contribute. But the offense is so the upside is so there with him, right? He's just such a versatile player on both ends of the floor. And again, if you look at that roster, like they just need guys that can play in the front court, right? They have backcourt players that can make a difference with Henderson and Simons, Sharp, guys like they can really kind of rack it up. They develop those players. They can really kind of rack it up from the perimeter. Get them some guys that are a little bit more versatile on the interior, or at least in the front court. Salaün can stretch the floor. Like you can really make a difference with that kid. So let's go Tidjane Salaün for the Portland Trailblazers here. Cowboys camp fan. What up, Mike? Where's Bronny James going? Not tonight. He's not going tonight. But there is a chance. He's going to get drafted, but he'll get drafted on Thursday. And I would imagine, like I said, I think the favorite for that is likely his dad's team. Like, I don't know. Look, here's what I'll say about Bronny. And this is kind of a good transition point. We just finished the lottery. So here's what I'll say about Bronny. Bronny is like Bronny has upside. Like I think Bronny has more potential than people give him credit for. Um, Bronny could, like, his talent level is draftable. I don't want to make it seem like there are a lot of people saying that, like, there's no reason that Bronny should get drafted. That's not really true, right? Bronny's a good player. Bronny had the heart condition thing that obviously set him back. Bronny didn't play a lot of minutes at USC, only played 19 or so minutes a game at USC. That sets him back, right? He was sitting behind Isaiah Collier as a point guard. Like, he's not. This is why I said he should have gone back to school. Like, next year, I think Bronny becomes a legitimate part of USC's offense. And again, he could also transfer. That's also a possibility too. But if Bronny were to stay in college, he would then be able to showcase his abilities even more so. But like, as far as what Bronny can do, play make, defense, he's a good athlete. Like, there's stuff that's there. He can finish the rim. Like, he does a lot of things good. He's not a bona fide scorer at the moment, but like I said, like, he's not, obviously he's not a great shooter at this point. He's kind of like his dad in that respect. He's smaller, right? He's only like 6'2" or so. So I get all that, but he's a high flying athlete. He plays defense. Like I said, he's a high IQ player. Like, that's what I think he has most in common with his dad, is that they're both really, really smart. Like, Bronny is a very smart basketball player. It isn't, like, for as young of a kid as he is, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Like, he's a very solid player as far as that is concerned. And Alberto Pete chiming in here, he's not NBA ready at all. You're right. He's absolutely not. Like, he's not a player that I think can go into the NBA and just immediately start racking stuff up. He can't. He's not that kind of player, right? But if he were to stay another year in college, another 2 years in college, then I think, yeah, he could be an NBA ready made product. He's going to walk into the NBA and ride the bench for the first year or two, right? He's a developmental player. You're going to have to be patient with him. So that's what I'll say on Bronny. I know that Bronny is a big story when it comes to this draft, and I understand all that. He's not a first round talent. My guess is that he's probably barely a second round player at this point. He's draftable, but he's not a game changer. So again, unless he's bringing LeBron over to wherever he gets drafted. So we'll go there. Bryson Carver, real quick, before I move on. I think Bronny has potential to be a very good role player in the NBA, but in a few years, Bryce James is going to be the real deal. That's what I've heard. Is that Bryce is the guy. Bryce is the guy. So let's move on to the Miami Heat at number 15. I would love to see them make a legitimate effort to get themselves a future at point guard. Let's give them Duke's favorite, Jared McCain. Now, shooting, and more and more and more and more shooting with Jared McCain. Okay. Off the dribble, this guy is crazy. Okay. Like, and I'm not saying that he's like Steph or anything like that, but boy, oh boy, off the dribble, this guy can make some pretty highlight reel shots. He can. Now, again, he's small. He's 6'2", just a tad over 200 pounds. Like, he's one of these guys that, like, I'm not sure he's creating offense for himself yet. But this guy's got finesse moves. He can really kind of toss it up and hit shots. He's a good player. So I would give Miami Jared McCain out of Duke. I think a lot of players would love that. A lot of people would like that pick. Give them a legit point guard, can run an offense, can hit shots, right? Can kind of, like, look, if you're going to let Jimmy do a lot of the work over there, right? If Jimmy Butler is going to be doing a lot of the work over there, okay. Jared McCain can go into that system and jack up threes and hit clutch shots. That's what Jared McCain does. So Miami Heat, Jared McCain. Philadelphia. Now, this guy that they're going to pick for me is, and again, I don't mean to get disrespectful because that's not really what I'm in the business of doing, at least in this spot. Because I already hate it when, like, draft coverage is focused on like the worst part of everybody's life. You know, to be like, I hate like as soon as the kid gets drafted, they immediately say, "Oh, this kid's mother died when he was 3." Like, I hate all that. I just do. Let the kid get drafted. Tell his story after. Okay, but that's just me. So again, I'm not really in the business of bashing kids. I do think that this guy is going to be overdrafted. Like, I think like he's in the 30s for me as far as ranking. Philadelphia at number 16, I think is going to take Tristan Da Silva. Now, again, he's not a bad player. People like that he's a smart kid. He can stretch the floor. He's kind of a combo forward. I think he's a bit of a tweener. He's probably more of a 4 than a 3. They like the fact that he can, he's got some two-way-ish sort of ability, but I just kind of see him as a floor spacer. That's kind of how I see him. Like, look, he's not a bad finisher at the rim. He can shoot threes. Like, he shot nearly 40%. Like, he can definitely hit threes. But when I watch his tape, when I watch Tristan Da Silva, I almost see, like, there are some times where I don't notice that he's there. Like, that's really the thing for me. So I'm a little, I'm not going to say that I'm out or anything like that. I'm not. But I will say that, like, I am skeptical in a sense of, like, the upside of Tristan Da Silva. Now, bona fide NBA player? Sure. Like, I can get, like, if you're going to put him in a role where, like, his role is to kind of be like a connection piece and he's going to stretch the floor and shoot threes, like, that's kind of what I think Philadelphia needs. Like, they kind of need a forward that's got some size. He's not a terrible defender. Like, he can shoot threes at an efficient rate. Like, a floor spacer, give Embiid a little bit more room on the floor. Like, I think that's legit. So if that's what you're going to get, fine. But as far as upside, I don't really know that I buy into it. I think he's almost like for certain just a role player. So that's where I'll go with that. Okay, Barry Grant Jr., if you're still with me, hopefully you let me know, because I kind of want to feel the anticipation here. The Lakers at 17. So here's the deal. In a lot of cases, this is where I got stuck, because, I kind of look at the Lakers and I'm like, this roster is a bit of a mess in a way. I know that he doesn't like that, but look, LeBron's going to come back. I'm sure LeBron's going to come back. Hachimura is back. Vanderbilt is back. I have a feeling that Anthony Davis is going to play center. But again, this is a mix of what I would do and a mix of what I think is going to happen. I have heard a lot of people. And again, I changed this today, because for a long time, I had them going with a shooter. I don't think they're taking a shooter. I think they're taking a big. And that big is going to be Kel'el Ware. Now, here's the deal. Kel'el Ware, I think, as far as like a legitimate NBA big is concerned, is almost as safe as you can get. Okay? Like, and he's got tons of like floor spacing upside, right? He can shoot the three, 42.5% from three. Now, again, that's on a pretty low volume. That's on slightly an attempt per game, slightly more than an attempt per game. So with volume, I don't know how that translates. Again, I'm a little skeptical on his like consistent shooting ability, but 2 blocks a game, 10 rebounds, really good athlete, shows some interior presence, and he's got upside. He's only 20 years old, right? Like, this guy played at Indiana, and there were times where he got bodied, but there were also times where he was bodying people, right? He's got a little bit of a thinner frame, but he's one of these guys where I think, like, when he fills out, he's going to be a beast on the inside. So if you can get a true big here and allow Anthony Davis to actually stretch the floor and not need to be a constant presence in the paint, I think that's legit. So Khalil Ware to the Lakers. I like waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the comment, dude. I wish that I wonder if he's like so mad that he's not throwing anything in here. I was really hoping that I would get a response a little bit quicker than what I just got. But I think Khalil Ware is a good pick, dude. I do. I like this guy can really get up, block shots, rebound. He's got some scoring ability. He's a good player. So, Orlando at number 18. Eve Messi. Now, look, back-to-back bigs. And again, I'm sure that there are going to be people wondering, like, where's Zach Edey? I think that Edey is going to go later than some of these other bigs. I just do. Like, I think when you watch them on tape, like, Edey is obviously dominant. Like, there's no question to be had about whether or not Zach Edey can dominate, because he can. Eve Messi is a ridiculous athlete. Like, this guy, this guy's going to walk into the NBA and just be a defensive machine, right? Listen, he gave, like, Khalil Ware, he gave Khalil Ware fits. Like, this guy is just a punisher underneath the rim. He just is. He's going to walk into the NBA day one and just be a defensive menace. He will be, right? He's going to block shots. He's going to rebound. He's an incredible lob threat, right? He can absorb contact. He's a perfect pick and roll big. Like, that's kind of where I see this. And Orlando is in a position where I think, like, they could use a big. They could use, like, a defensive anchor, right? Somebody they can pair up with Banchero in the front court that can just man the middle. That's, I think, something that they could use. A true rim protecting, rim running sort of big. So Eve Messi, I think, it can really, really fits that bill for the Orlando Magic. Let's go to the Toronto Raptors at number 19. And again, I've changed the picks in this range 100 times. And I think I finally landed on something that I like with this. Let's go Isaiah Collier to the Raptors. Now, for the longest time, I was thinking stretch forward, right? Tyler Smith, like among those kinds of players, I was really looking at them for that spot. Bobby Clintman, Jalen Tyson, like those kind of players in this spot. But if you really think about it, like, if you just look at, like, the guys that they are running at guard, right? Scotty Barnes is playing a lot of lead guard over there. That's fine. Emmanuel Quickly is there playing a lot of lead guard as well. He's a free agent. So they kind of need a true point, right? Like, this is a team that I think really kind of needs to hit the reset button at point guard. And Isaiah Collier is a guy that can do that, right? Good defender, good ball handler. He's got a really nice playmaker. Like, he's kind of fits the mold of, like, a thick, true point guard, right? He's a guy that is going to win a lot of battles when driving. You know, he's not a super big kid. He's 6'3" or so, but he's 200 plus. He's got a thick frame, you know, and again, he's not like a totally inept shooter. You know, like, he shot, he hit about his third of his threes. He hit 34% from three. That's capable enough. He can defend. He's got some upside there as, like, a two-way guard. And listen, he's kind of made it to where, like, watching Isaiah Collier is pretty fun. It really kind of is. You know what I mean? Like, he's a very, like, Eric Bledsoe kind of point guard. And those guys were really fun to watch. So, again, getting them like a lead guard in Toronto, I think, would really make a lot of sense. So Isaiah Collier at a USC will go to the Raptors. Let's go to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Here's my guess. My guess is that the entire core in Cleveland stays put. So that includes, I think Mitchell resigns. I think Garland stays. I don't know that they trade Darius Garland. Mobley, I think, is going to stick around. Allen, I think, is probably going to stick around. So as far as like their roster is concerned, I do think their roster is pretty good. But I think they need more depth at guard. Like, I think they need more guys in the backcourt that they trust. Because outside of Garland and Mitchell, like Garland and Mitchell, as talented as they are, they're very hot and cold. Like, they could very easily. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, but he has his nights where he goes 4 for 20. You know what I mean? You need a change of pace kind of shooter, kind of guard that can make a difference in that aspect. So I am going to give the Cavs Jacoby Walter. Now, here's the thing. Jacoby Walter is a player for me that, like, this is the definition of a two-way player in this draft for me, right? Like, I don't know what kind of upside he has, but what I know is that he's a good on-ball defender and he's a really solid perimeter shooter. Like, he is the definition of a two-way player. He can hit shots off the dribble. He's a great standstill shooter. He can play make, right? Like, he's a fairly solid passer. And again, as far as like actual two-way ability, Jacoby Walter, I think, is like I said, he's the very definition of it. But like, he is almost what a prototypical two-way guy looks like. True shooting, true defense. That's what he does, right? There's not much else to his game. He plays with passion, hits some shots. He can hit shots off the dribble. And again, he plays good defense. There's not much else to it, right? He's not a great ball handler. Okay, I don't need him to be a great ball handler. I already got 2 of them. If I'm Cleveland, that's the direction I go in. So Jacoby Walter to the Cavs at 20. Let's go to the Pelicans. Do I even need to go into just how decorated this guy is? And I think it's like this is a legitimate perfect fit. Let's just go to the Pelicans and give him Zach Edey, right? So this is a team for me that I think could use a big. Valanciunas is an unrestricted free agent. They don't really have another big to step in and play that role, right? They're giving Zion a bunch of money. They're giving Ingram a bunch of money. Like, the chances are is that they trade Ingram, but like, Herb Jones cannot play center. Trey Murphy cannot play center. Like, they're kind of in a position where, like, it's either they re-sign Valanciunas or they got to find another answer. How about pairing dominant college player with another dominant college player? Let's just, like, tally this off, okay? NCAA All-Tourney, NCAA All-Region, 2-time AP Player of the Year, 2-time Consensus All-American, 2-time Wooden Award, 2-time Naismith Award, 2-time Big Ten Player of the Year, 3-time All-Big Ten, 2-time All-Big Ten Tourney, 2-time Big Ten All-Defense, Big Ten All-Freshman, Big Ten Tourney MVP. That is Zach Edey's, like, that's what Zach Edey's plaque in the Purdue Hall of Fame is going to look like. Like, that is just insane. And if you were to ask me today, like, I was skeptical too about what kind of players Zach Edey could be in the NBA, because he's kind of slow. Players like him, like these big, super big centers, like, what are they really? Well, whenever I watch Zach Edey, he's just like a ridiculous interior presence. Like, he's going to score at the NBA level. He averaged 25 points a game this past year. Like, he's shooting like 70%. And if you've watched him work out, like him stretching the floor, it's not nearly proven, obviously, but him stretching the floor is not off the table. Like, that's not like a lost cause. He could very easily just post himself up. Guy, like, listen, he's 7'4", 300 pounds. Like, I don't care how big, how strong you are. That's hard to keep in front of you. Okay? Like, we all understand, like, the difference between college bodies and NBA bodies, right? We understand between boy strength and man strength. I get all of that. But there comes a point where, like, the line gets broken. Zach Edey broke the line there. He just did. Okay? 7'4", 300 is going to play in the NBA like it did in college. He is going to dominate people from a size perspective. It is going to be this easy. Boop. That's it. Into the rim. That's done deal. He will score. He will defend. Okay. Where you can get him screwed up is if he switches on the perimeter, which I'm sure they're going to have him do a bunch, right? If he gets switched out of the perimeter, that could be a problem. But he's also big enough to where, like, if he gets blown by, he could still probably chase him down. Height, length, he's got all that for him. He's got a 7'11" wingspan. like just ridiculous stuff. So soft touch. He's going to be a defender. The post presence for him is just going to be ridiculous. So, and again, for the Pelicans, they kind of need a big. Why not just keep racking up dominant college players? Let's do it. Let's do it. Zion, Zach Edey. How fun of a front court would that be to watch? Really? With a healthy Zion and Zach Edey. Oh my goodness, that would be fun. So the Pelicans get Zach Edey at 21. Let's go to the Phoenix Suns. How about you know what they need? They need more scoring. So let's give them a scorer. Let's give them Bub Carrington out of Pittsburgh. This is a player that I think can really make a difference as a scorer. Like, just a ridiculous mid-range game. Ridiculous mid-range game. Okay? Like, off the dribble, like, he can finesse guys in the mid-range. Like, that's like a clear cut. Like, that's something that will translate. Young kid, he's only 19. I understand all that. But he's not really undersized. He's 6'5" or so. He was a little inconsistent from three, but like, the tools are all there, right? He's, as his role kind of gets cut back in the NBA, I think his efficiency numbers will get better. Like, that's kind of what I see. Like, he was playing such a large role as a scorer at Pitt that it was kind of like he couldn't help but be inefficient. So, combo guard, throw him in Phoenix. This is one of these guys where I think, like, you could use a little bit of depth as a guard, right? Like, they could probably use a little bit more of a lead guard rather than a scoring guard. But I think Carrington has some of that upside, right? He averaged 4 assists at Pitt. So could he be a guy like Cam Payne, right? Could he be like a Lou Williams kind of player, right? Could he be that? And I think he could, right? His jump shot starts hitting at a consistent rate. I think Bub Carrington could be a really good NBA player. All right, Milwaukee Bucks. Now, for a while, I've had them going big as well, but there really aren't many that I think really fit what they want to do. You could go somebody like a Bona. You could go Deron Holmes out of Dayton. But I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction here. And I'm going to give them Keyshawn George. Now, he is a like forward / guard kind of player. And the Bucks do have a deep team. So it's not like they're desperate for one thing or the other. But Keyshawn George is just one of those guys that I think is just like another two-way kind of player that'll hit shots, play defense, the whole bit, right? He's a young kid, 20 years old, good shooter, hit 40 or 41% from three at Miami last year. He's a decent playmaker. Really tries on defense. Like he's a bit of a dog on defense. And he didn't play a ton of minutes at Miami, but like just the fact that he played limited minutes at Miami and he's still this highly touted of a prospect just kind of gives you the idea of what people think of him. Listen, two-way shooting ability, that will be the theme of the draft. You can find a player like that, he's going to go. Keyshawn George to the Bucks. All right, Knicks back-to-back. They're going to take a fan favorite here. This is one of those picks, and this is like one of my favorite parts of the draft. It's like matchmaking, right? Because I just I feel like this is just going to be a match made in heaven. Like I can just see this. Okay. New fan favorite for the Knicks, Johnny Furphy. Like I can just see it. I can see the wavy hair. I can just see it with Johnny Furphy in New York. Okay. He's got the face that can take over New York, right? Add some depth on the wing, right? Again, another combo wing player who can shoot the lights out. Again, for a guy who's getting as much clout as a shooter, I wanted him to be a little bit more efficient as a shooter. But this guy can cut. He's got a really solid three-point shot. He's fairly crafty at the rim. Again, decent defender. I think he's immediately going to walk into the NBA and be like a catch and shoot, standstill three-point shooter. Even if it's just like him sitting in a corner, I think that's all going to be there for him. So here's the thing about him is that like there were times in college where he kind of did get exposed defensively, and that might need to get a little bit nipped in the bud. And he's not much of a playmaker. He's kind of just like a ball stopper, final destination for the ball kind of player. So, but as far as that's concerned, I think fan favorite for the Knicks now, Johnny Furphy. Then we go to their second pick. Rumor has it they want to trade Mitchell Robinson and they want to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein, but they still need depth at that position. I mean, we kind of saw the hole that they had when Julius Randle got hurt. Like they really need like another legit body in there. So I'm going to go and give them Deron Holmes. Now, again, Deron Holmes is like, again, he's a player that ranks around in the 30s for me, but he's one of my like favorite players in the whole draft just because his resume at Dayton was so good, right? He averaged over 20 points a game, pulled down 8.5 boards. He blocked more than 2 shots a game. Like, what more do you want, right? Now, the questions are, what kind of competition was he playing at Dayton? That can definitely be said, right? And it's not terrible, but he's not playing at Kentucky. He's not playing in Virginia. Like, he's not playing at any of these schools. I think as far as like a floor spacer, shot blocker, versatile, like big man in the middle, put him on the block on either side. Like he does a lot for you, right? I mean, he hit about 38% of his threes last year. It depends on what you think of his shooting ability. I think it's for real. Like I think Deron Holmes like legitimately became a solid floor spacer. So again, if he can protect the rim, shoot threes, finish on the inside, play an efficient form of basketball, and again, just translate that sort of like dog mentality that he had at Dayton over to the Knicks, I think people would love him and he fills a hole. So that's what I would go with that. When does the draft start? It is tomorrow, I believe, at 8 o'clock. So again, I'm like, I'm sort of dying over here, man. Oh man, it's tough talking to yourself for a long time. Okay, Washington Wizards. They have another pick here at 26. And again, I think like specialty kind of players. There's a lot of these guys. Okay, this is like one of my favorite players to watch on tape was this guy right here. Washington right here is going to take Ryan Dunn out of Virginia. This guy is an unbelievable defender. Like, there are, like, I very rarely throw this term out, but like, he could very easily be the best defender I've ever evaluated. Like, this guy is a big and a forward's body. He really is. Like, this guy averaged 2.5 blocks a game, and he's like 6'6". Like, that's the kind of player that he is. Like, ridiculous defense, sticks to his man, creates turnovers, right? Like, he's not, and that's the thing, is like, you're drafting Ryan Dunn so that he can be Andre Roberson. Like, he is a defensive specialist. He is a stopper. And every championship caliber team needs a legitimate guy where, like, all right, I need to stop. I need to throw this guy on him, right? Tony Allen, Andre Roberson, Marcus Smart. Like, they need those kind of players. Ryan Dunn is that. He's not a scorer. He averaged 8 points a game at Virginia. He's not a super good three-point shooter, right? Teams will often like sag off him when it comes to him like being a threat from the perimeter. Like, he's not a scorer. He won't be a scorer. But could he be a lob threat? Could he finish at the rim when given an open lane? Yes. And is he going to play hard-nosed elite defense? Yes. I think Ryan Dunn is going to go in the first round for that very reason. Somebody's going to buy into his defensive ability and just be like, boom, that's the best defensive player in the class. If I can get him late in the first round, I'm going to do it. So Ryan Dunn goes to the Wizards. The Minnesota Timberwolves. So let's go to Minnesota here. Again, maybe just some wing depth for me. They're going to take somebody that I think he's going to go in the first round. I don't know that I love him as a first round pick, but he's going to go. He's going to go in the first. So let's go with Kevin McCullough here for Minnesota, right? I kind of have beaten the hell out of this dead horse, but two-way players, two-way wings is where this draft is going to be. Like, that's the theme of this draft, right? Good perimeter scorer, averaged 18 a game last year at Kansas, and he's improved. He's made his improvements as a shooter. He wasn't always a reliable shooter. Shot 34%. That's livable from behind the three-point line. He does have a little bit of a mid-range game. He can shoot it all over. Like, he's a good player, and he's experienced. He's 23 years old, turning 24. Like, he's going to be that kind of player. And really what you're buying into is, again, he's another one of these like defenders where, like, if nothing else pans out, like if his shooting doesn't really translate, he's a very, very good on-ball defender. Like, he's going to have, a solid NBA career because he's 6'8", with long arms, and he can defend. Like, there you go. You want to have a long listen, if you want to have a long NBA career and your shots aren't falling, you better learn how to like play like a dog and play hard-nosed defense. That's how you survive. And that's what Kevin McCullough is. At the very worst, he's a defender. So Kevin McCullough to the Minnesota Timberwolves at 27. Okay, number 28 for the Denver Nuggets. This is one of my favorite fits. When I was making this mock draft, dude, this was one of my favorite fits, one of my favorite pairings in the entire thing, in the entire draft. I think if they could bring in another legitimate playmaking point guard who is just like a winning basketball player, that would go so well in Denver. The Denver Nuggets are going to take Tyler Kolek. Spoiler alert here. Tyler Kolek is my number 12 overall player. Like, I am extremely high on Tyler Kolek. Okay. His IQ for the game, his feel for the game is among the best in the draft. Okay. He's a guy that can change the pace of the game naturally. That's hard to do. Okay. He can score. He averaged 7.5 assists at Marquette last year, right? Can hit the threes, got a good left-handed stroke, right? Just a great all-around playmaker. Super crafty at the rim. He's patient, right? A good leader. I love this fit. If they can make it happen, like I think Tyler Kolek is no doubt a first-round pick, right? He's Goran Dragic. He's that kind of player. If you can just like make that work, then I think that's the spot for him to go. And again, he's undersized. He's not very athletic. Like he does have drawbacks, but a winning style of player. That's what Tyler Kolek is. So Tyler Kolek to the Nuggets at 28. 29, Utah Jazz. They took earlier in the draft, they took Rob Dillingham. So let's give them a forward. And let's go with Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith right now, I think, is one of the more higher upside players. I think he's fallen off of boards a little bit more recently. And again, I think that it's simply because, like, he's a little raw, right? He's a G League Ignite kid. He's not 20 yet, right? Like, he's kind of like, people don't really know what it is. They just kind of see upside with him and nothing really polished. And that's kind of what I see too, right? Like he's a good shooter. He's got a smooth left-handed stroke. Like he's my number 15 overall player. Like I love the makeup of this kid. I think he's got a lot of high upside. But as of right now, he's not a good defender, right? You're just kind of seeing him like miss shots close to the rim, which is kind of odd for a player his size, like 6'9", 6'10", with good length. Like you'd kind of want to see a little bit more precision when he's close to the basket. But as far as upside is concerned, he's a good athlete. I think he can guard multiple positions, but he's just got to learn how to play defense. He's got to learn how to, like, he just kind of looks lost. It's almost like an IQ thing. He doesn't understand where he needs to be on defense. The athleticism, the size, the length, it's all there. He has upside as a defender, but he needs to be coached into a position where he can actually be in the right spot at the right time. So Tyler Smith at 29 to the Jazz here is an upside pick. And then the reigning champions, the Boston Celtics. As I kind of mentioned him a little bit before, he's a better prospect this year than he was last year, and he just earned himself into the first round for me. The Boston Celtics, they'll take Bobby Klintman. Now, again, here's a kind of player where he went to the NBL. The production was not amazing, but he developed. He developed his skills, right? He's a better shooter than he was at Wake Forest. He's a better defender than he was at Wake Forest. Like, he went to go play in the NBL and became a legitimate two-way prospect that people can rely on, right? He's not a stupid young kid anymore as far as like, you know, his development and everything like that. Like he's over 21 years old now, right? He's got a really solid, like high floor kind of outlook now. Like it's kind of tough to see Bobby Klintman failing in the NBA just because of those things, right? He's shown kind of glimpses of him being able to create his own shot, right? He can defend multiple positions. He's like 6'10. He's got good length, right? He's a solid ball handler, great straight line speed, right? He's a little thin, but again, as he fills out, I think he becomes a little bit more of a pluggable player. And he's kind of one of these stretch forwards that Boston likes, right? Like he's one of these guys that I think can fill the hole of somebody like Grant Williams. You know, he's a little bit more versatile than somebody like Sam Hauser. Like he can kind of fit a role in that respect. So you play him in kind of a rotation with Tatum and, you know, like I said, Sam Hauser. I'm really a fan of Jordan Walsh. I think Jordan Walsh is going to play a role for them in the next couple of years, but I just think that could really be a fit for them as well. Bobby Klintman going to the Boston Celtics. So there we go. There we have it. That's the first round, right? So let's just slide through the picks here. If you're just tuning in now, again, I don't know what you're doing. You're an hour and a half late. But okay, so we go here. Atlanta takes Alex Sarr. Washington with Stephon Castle. Reed Shepard to the Rockets. The Spurs take Zachary Rasache at 4. Pistons take Matas Buzelis at 5. The Hornets, Devin Carter at 6. Portland takes Ron Holland at 7. San Antonio takes one of my favorite players in the whole draft, Nikola Topic at number 8. Number 9, Memphis takes Donovan Clingan. Number 10, Utah Jazz rounded out with Rob Dillingham. Chicago goes to Cody Williams. Oklahoma City takes Dalton Knecht. Sacramento, Kyle Filipowski to the Sacramento Kings at 13. And then rounding out the lottery, Portland takes T. Salon, the kid out of France. Miami goes point guard at 15 with Jared McCain. Philadelphia takes Tristan Da Silva at 16. The Lakers going big with Kel'el Ware at 17. Orlando with Yves Missi at number 18. Toronto at 19 goes Isaiah Collier. The Cavs nab Jacoby Walter at 20. The Pelicans taking Zach Edey at 21. Phoenix gets Carlton Carrington at number 22. Milwaukee takes Keyshawn George. The Knicks back-to-back picks. New fan favorite. I'm telling you right now. Johnny Furphy to the Knicks at 24. And then they take Deron Holmes at 25. Washington, lockdown defender Ryan Dunn at 26. Minnesota takes Kevin McCullough at number 27. Denver gets Tyler Kolek at 28. Utah gets Tyler Smith at 29. And Boston takes Bobby Klintman at number 30. So there we go. That's the first round. Again, if you tuned in, thank you for doing so. Again, tomorrow night is the live NBA draft show. Myself, Bryson Carver, whoever else tunes into that show, make sure that you tune in, right? We've been doing it for years now. It always turns out to be a great, great time. Again, and it's split into 2 days. So now you're getting first round on Wednesday, second round on Thursday. We'll be there for both. It's going to be a really fun time. So again, on the GRYD Network, I am Mike Guido. We will see you tomorrow for the NBA draft. Again, thank you for tuning in to the NBA Live Mock. Make sure you catch it again tomorrow. Replay it back. Kind of catch my thoughts before the draft starts tomorrow. And again, we'll be back there tomorrow for the NBA draft live. I believe the show starts at 7:30 or 7:45 tomorrow before the draft begins at 8 o'clock. So again, we will see you then. As for Mike Guido, I am as for Mike Guido, I am Mike Guido. There you go. See, I'm rusty. I just got back from a bachelor party this weekend. You can't blame me. But again, on the GRYD Network, I'm Mike Guido. We'll see you tomorrow.